We have to foster cooperative working environments, foster sibling strengths. So if certain siblings have strengths in sales and other siblings have strength in service, we need to make sure that we use those strengths wisely to our advantage, to our business's advantage. Hi, Therese with Agency Performance Partners here. Thanks for joining me for the blog today about siblings working together in an insurance agency. So do you remember all those fights growing up with your siblings? But do you remember all those fun times growing up with all those siblings? I had cousins. There were 5 of them. And I always loved going over to their house because we always had so much fun playing hide and seek and doing all these family things together. It was so much fun. But then we moved away. And we didn't have a lot of siblings around, didn't have a lot of friends. It was a struggle. And I always admired those families that had large groups of kids. My neighbor actually is pregnant for her 5th child. And I think it's really cool. I mean, it's hard. It definitely is not something that is easy, but it's fun for kids. Now imagine having to work with those siblings in a business, a family-owned business. Now that you're grown up, you may question that decision of working with your family because it is not easy. It can be super tricky. And if you haven't heard, there's a word called nepotism, and it's basically talking about how you treat family and relatives in a business environment. And it basically talks about not treating them differently. There are several benefits to working with siblings, but there are also challenges. Not only are you facing different personalities, whatever made you fight as kids, it can be even more complicated as adults when you're working together. Basically, benefits of working with your siblings. There's a deep trust and understanding and familiarity with each other that builds a strong foundation of trust. The trust is beneficial because you'll be working closely together in a business setting. You have the family legacy, the long-term commitment that siblings have to this business because it is a family-owned business. So they're going to have more dedication. They're going to be more driven. They're going to have shared visions and values. Typically, siblings share similar values because of their upbringing and their common backgrounds. So it will be easy to come up with visions and values for the family business. Your goals, your work ethic, promoting cohesive working environments, and communication. Siblings often develop great, effective communication skills because of their long-term relationships that they have. It can enhance collaboration and proficiency and problem solving. Some siblings can complement each other when it comes to strengths and weaknesses. But there are challenges that go along with working with siblings. Personal dynamics and conflict, difficulty in establishing boundaries, lack of objectivity, sibling rivalry. So sibling rivalry is a tough one because you may not be getting along, but when you're in an insurance agency, you're running a business, it's a family business, you can't have sibling rivalries going on in the business. It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make sense for the rest of your siblings, and it doesn't make sense for the rest of your staff. It's unhealthy having competitions with each other, and you may be having the competition trying to win the love of your parents or even seeing the succession plan of where the agency is going to go. You may be fighting over that, worried about that. When it comes to shares and stuff like that, you may feel because you're an older child that you should get more shares. But that is something that really needs to be determined by the parent. And if every single one of the siblings is working in the agency, why would it be depending on when you were born? I think it really needs to depend on the involvement that you have in the agency. So if you're all fully immersed and fully involved in the agency, I really think you should have equal parts. And that's just my opinion, but it all depends on some very specific details. But you have to make sure you build professional relationships because just like having coworkers, everyone needs to have clear roles. You need to have established job descriptions right from the beginning, because if you don't, then everybody's going to kind of assume a role and assume they're doing things. And then it's going to cause conflict between each other because you haven't discussed those job descriptions and what each one of you is doing in the actual agency. Older children may try to assume a leader role that they may not be suited for because you have strengths and weaknesses. Some people are leaders and some people aren't. So you need to communicate openly and honestly to avoid any misunderstandings. That does not mean that you're allowed to yell and argue and fight. That is not allowed in a professional environment. So you need to make sure that you have open lines of communication and that you're communicating dynamically with each other to express things. Set boundaries between personal and professional lives. You need to keep your family and your family life at the family, and you need to keep your business and your business life at the business. Because when you start intermingling them and putting them together, it really is going to cause more issues because it's going to pull in your spouses into the business and it's going to pull your coworkers into the family. So you need to make rules like not allowing talks about business during holidays and family get-togethers. Small talk about work about family would be okay, but bringing up family events and issues to work should not be tolerated just because you need to make sure that those things don't intermingle. It is a professional work environment, so it's not a competition field. You're not out there playing tennis. You guys have to work together to actually make the business successful. You need to recognize and address any competitive situations you may have by working with siblings in the insurance agency. If your parents own the agency, which is usually the case, you have to be careful that siblings aren't competing for parents' attention or to get higher up in the business. It's a business, not a playground, and we have to make sure we treat it as such. We have to foster cooperative working environments, foster sibling strength. So if certain siblings have strengths in sales and other siblings have strength in service, we need to make sure that we use those strengths wisely to our advantage, to our business's advantage. You need to also celebrate work wins. When you guys do something successful, celebrate those with each other. It's very important that you recognize each other and celebrate each other when you guys do a really good job, because it's not always about just the competition and not getting along. It's also about getting along. So when you guys do a great job and you have maybe a leadership meeting and you do really well and you communicate really well and you keep the timing right, celebrate that. Go out for lunch, but do something to celebrate the wins, but also make sure you have open communication to discuss things that aren't going well. There's so many other things that go into siblings and working together. You have to make sure that you have a company culture, and the company culture can determine whether you keep employees or not. So make sure you build an agency culture you are proud of, not one that you don't even want to think about. If this is the case and it bothers you, we're here to help. We have worked with many sibling-run, family-owned, and even spouse-run agencies, and we know how to set the ground rules to work through all the background noise. Get to the important matters, get to the focus of the family issues, and back onto the insurance issues. You can set up an appointment with us. We are here to help build that foundation. So you have to have that foundation in your agency, in your family-run business agency, and you have to balance work and family. So just basically keeping work as much as you can at work and family as much as you can at family. So the main takeaways on this are boundaries. You want to keep really good boundaries, job descriptions, things like that. So, and use each other's strengths, but don't pick on people's weaknesses. If you know your siblings so well, you know their weaknesses and you know how to get to them. Getting to them on purpose and using their weaknesses is showing poor, I want to say businessship, but you're not being very good to them and being very good to the business if you're trying to tear them down. They're actually your coworkers as well as your siblings. So when you're in the business environment, you need to look at them more as coworkers and less as siblings. So you can't just go yelling and hollering, and you can't text each other little things when you get mad to make each other angry. That's not how it works, and it shouldn't work that way, because that's not how you're going to get the business in the right direction, running smoothly. So you want to make sure that you use each other's strengths, that you celebrate each other's wins. Try not to talk about the business at home because you don't want to bring your spouses in it and make your spouses become part of that business dynamic. So when you are together as a family, you don't enjoy each other because you're too busy tit for tat talking about all the stuff that's happening in the business. You really, really, really want to continue to have that family relationship. That family bond is really, really, really important. It's not a bond that you want to lose. Family is way, way more important than a business. And yes, the business is important because it brings the income and gets you where you want to be. but those family relationships are also very, very important, and you don't want to ruin those. So keep those boundaries of the family relationship and the boundaries of the business. Try to keep the business, all that stuff at the business, and communicate about it when you are at work. But communicate it as professionals, as professional coworkers, and not necessarily as siblings. I hope this podcast helps you think through what it's like to run an insurance agency with your siblings. Keep those boundaries, communicate very clearly, make sure you're understanding what each other is looking for. You guys have this bond that is unbelievable. It's a great bond that can never really be broken unless you guys try really hard to break it. And sometimes siblings running an insurance agency can break it. Please don't allow that to happen. Please, please, please make sure that you keep your sibling family bonds, because those are really, really important. And then run your business like beasts. Run a great, local, family-oriented insurance agency with respect. Show your local people around that you guys respect each other. You guys are a great family, and you work together to provide this amazing customer service for all the people that are insured with your agency, because that's really the goal. The goal is to have a wonderful, dynamic, successful, family-owned business. If we can help, let us know. agencyperformancepartners.com. Thanks for joining me today.